You're on a red-eye flight, the kind where the cabin lights dim low and the world outside is just a black void dotted with stars. You're exhausted, your body heavy from days of endless worry, and you finally let your eyes close, drifting into that fragile space between wakefulness and dreams. But then, a subtle shift in the air, the rustle of fabric, the quiet thud of boots on carpet, pulls you back, and you open your eyes to see shadows looming all around you. That's the nightmare-turned-miracle that unfolded for Sarah Thompson on Flight 247 from San Diego to Chicago. A moment that would shatter her grief and rebuild her heart in ways she never imagined possible. Sarah had boarded that plane, feeling like a ghost of herself. Her carry-on bag clutched tight like a lifeline. It had been 8 months since the knock on her door. 2 uniformed officers standing there, their faces etched with the kind of regret that no words could soften. Her husband, Lieutenant Mark Thompson, a Navy SEAL with eyes like the ocean and a laugh that could light up the darkest room, had been killed in a classified operation overseas. He left behind Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Lily back home with grandparents, and a void so deep it swallowed her whole. She was flying to Chicago for a memorial event, one organized by Mark's old unit. But the weight of it all had her nodding off in seat 6B, her head against the window, the cool glass a small comfort against her flushed cheeks. Little did she know, the men who shared that flight weren't just fellow passengers. They were ghosts from Mark's past, ready to pull her from the abyss. And as the plane leveled out at 35,000 feet, the real journey was about to begin. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, calm but laced with something unspoken, asking everyone to remain seated for a special announcement. Sarah stirred, blinking away the fog of sleep, her heart skipping a beat as she noticed the aisle filling with broad-shouldered men in civilian clothes, jeans and hoodies that did little to hide their military bearing. They moved with precision, like shadows detaching from the walls, surrounding her row in a semicircle. One by one they froze in place, standing at rigid attention, their eyes locked forward, hands clasped behind their backs. The cabin fell silent, passengers craning their necks, phones slipping from hands as confusion rippled through the air like a chill wind. Sarah's pulse raced. Was this a threat, a drill, some twisted prank? But then she saw the patches on their sleeves, peeking out as sleeves rode up. The trident emblem of the SEALs, the same one Mark had worn with quiet pride. Her breath caught in her throat, tears pricking her eyes before she even understood why. Because deep down, her soul recognized the tribute unfolding right there in the sky. One of the men, a tall figure with a scar tracing his jawline like a map of battles won and lost, stepped forward just enough to break the formation. His name was Jake Ramirez, Mark's best friend and team leader, the one who'd carried Mark's dog tags home after that fateful night in the desert. "Sarah," he said softly, his voice rough like gravel but warm like a brother's embrace, "we couldn't let you fly alone today." The other SEALs remained frozen, a wall of silent strength, but their eyes softened as Jake knelt beside her seat, pulling a folded American flag from his backpack, the one that had draped Mark's casket. He pressed it into her hands, the fabric heavy with memories, and whispered stories only warriors share. How Mark had saved Jake's life in a firefight, dragging him through sandstorms under enemy fire, refusing to leave a brother behind. Sarah's fingers trembled on the flag, the scent of starch and faint gun oil wafting up, pulling her back to lazy Sundays when Mark would polish his boots in their kitchen, humming old rock tunes. The tension built in her chest, a storm of sorrow and gratitude, as passengers around her wiped their eyes, drawn into this intimate circle of sacrifice. But Jake wasn't done. There was more to this ambush of the heart, a revelation that would test her fragile resolve even further. As Jake spoke, the other SEALs began to thaw from their frozen stance, one by one sharing fragments of Mark's life that Sarah had never heard. There was Tyler, the youngest, with a boyish grin hiding scars of his own, recounting how Mark had mentored him through his first deployment, teaching him to find calm in chaos by picturing Lily's tiny hands waving goodbye. Then came Elena, one of the few female SEALs on the team, her voice steady but eyes glistening as she described Mark's quiet acts of kindness, like the time he forfeited his leave to cover for a teammate whose wife was in labor. The air in the cabin grew thick with emotion, the hum of the engines fading into the background as Sarah felt the walls she'd built around her grief start to crack. She clutched the flag tighter, tears streaming down her face now, hot and unrelenting, mixing with the faint taste of salt on her lips. Passengers leaned in, some recording on their phones, others murmuring prayers. The whole plane transformed into a floating sanctuary of shared humanity. Yet amid the vulnerability, a spark of connection ignited. These warriors weren't just honoring Mark. They were adopting Sarah as their own, vowing to stand by her and Lily through the storms ahead. But the deepest cut was yet to come. A secret Mark had left behind that would redefine everything. Jake reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, weathered envelope sealed with Mark's handwriting. A letter he'd written before that last mission, entrusted to his team in case he didn't make it back. "He wanted you to have this up here among the clouds," Jake said, his voice breaking for the first time, closer to where he thought heaven might be. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it, the paper crinkling like autumn leaves, and read aloud in a whisper that carried through the hushed cabin. "My love, if you're reading this, know that every beat of my heart was for you and Lily. I fought not just for country, but for the quiet mornings with your head on my shoulder, for her giggles echoing in our home. Promise me you'll keep flying, chase dreams, find joy in the little things. I'm with you, always." The words hung in the air like stars, piercing the darkness of her loss, and Sarah sobbed openly now, the seals closing in gently, their arms forming a protective circle. One by one they touched her shoulder, murmuring "Hoo-yah." The SEAL battle cry turned into a lullaby of solidarity. The tension peaked, a crescendo of raw emotion that left no dry eye on that flight, as Sarah realized this wasn't just a surprise. It was Mark's final mission, executed through the brothers he'd left behind. And as the plane began its descent, the weight in her chest lifted just a little, replaced by a warmth that promised healing. By the time the wheels touched down in Chicago, Sarah stepped off that plane not as a widow adrift, but as part of an unbreakable family forged in fire. The SEALs walked with her through the terminal, carrying her bags and sharing laughs about Mark's terrible jokes, turning strangers' stares into nods of respect. Lily waited at the gate with wide eyes, rushing into Sarah's arms, the flag now a cape around her tiny shoulders. In that moment, amid the bustle of arrivals, Sarah felt Mark's presence, not as a ghost, but as a guiding light, reminding her that love doesn't end. It evolves, carried on wings of sacrifice and connection. And as she hugged Jake goodbye, promising barbecues and holidays together, she knew this story wasn't over. It was just beginning anew, high above the clouds where heroes watch over us all. What surprises might life hold for you next?